Hi everyone, my name is Lisa and welcome back to my booktube channel, Lisa in Bookland. So today I'm here to bring you a TBR for my holiday that I'm lucky enough to be going on in February with my mum for her birthday. So we're going to Cornwall. A lot of people actually tell me that a holiday is wasted on me because all I do when I go on holidays is read books and drink tea, but that's the best part of a holiday in my opinion, and I'm sure everybody here on booktube understands that and agrees. So we will be getting out and about obviously, so I'm not sure how much reading I will be doing. However, we are bringing the car, so I'm lucky enough that I can bring as many books as I want without having to worry about fitting them into a suitcase or weight restrictions or anything. So I'll plan for reading a lot. It is February in Cornwall, so the weather won't be marvellous. I did wear the sun hat for the thumbnail, but I won't be bringing it. There'll be plenty of time cozying up by the fire, I'm sure, with a book. So first up is one of the authors I'm sure people think about straight away when Cornwall is mentioned, Daphne De Maria. She spent a lot of her life there. I've read Rebecca by Daphne De Maria before and I absolutely loved it. It was great. So what the books I'm planning to get to on this holiday are Jamaica Inn, which is about smugglers, I believe, and of course smugglers have a very historic connection with Cornwall, and I know there actually is a real life Jamaica Inn in Cornwall where she stayed at and that inspired her, so I might even get to visit that. So I think I'm going to read Jamaica Inn on the ferry over. I haven't been able to find a physical copy, so I'll probably read it on my e-reader. However, I do have another Daphne De Maria book, a physical copy. I just happened to see it when I was in a bookshop last weekend, and this is Britannia by Daphne De Maria. It's a little bit more of an unusual one. It's about this scenario where the UK and the US have united into a country called US-UK, and this seems to be about a family and how they deal with this situation, occupation of the UK by US troops. So I'll see what this one is like. Hopefully it'll be interesting. I was then thinking about this one, The French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles. Last year I read The Magus by John Fowles and it was grand. I didn't really love it. It was a little bit too literary for me and strange, but from what I've heard, The French Lieutenant's Woman is a little bit more accessible. I know it's set in Lyme Regis, which is beside the sea, and I thought that might fit in well with my Cornish holiday. I was at Lyme Regis before very briefly, and it was a lovely town with the cob and everything, so yeah, can't wait to relive those memories. There's no real blurb on this edition, so I don't really know too much about what it's about. I know there's a love story as part of it, but I'm hesitant to look up any more detail just in case of spoilers, so we'll see how I like that one. So continuing the Lyme Regis theme, the next book I'm hoping to read is Persuasion by Jane Austen. It's been a while since I've read any Jane Austen, and I don't think I read Persuasion at all last year, and Persuasion is my favourite Jane Austen. In fact, it is my second favourite book of all time, only very recently topped, more on that later. I love Persuasion. Anne Elliot I think is my favourite Jane Austen heroine. I know she's a bit quieter than other Jane Austen heroines, but I think at some stages she's quite relatable. The love story is beautiful, and I think one of my favourite things about Persuasion is just the secondary characters. The Crofts are my favourite secondary characters in all of Austen. I think whenever Admiral Croft and Mrs. Croft are on the page, they're just my favourite thing about it, and they're so funny, and it's so nice to see such a happily married and well matched couple. So that's why I love Persuasion. Can't wait to get back to it, and I'm sure it'll be one of my highlights of next month. So back to another author that's really intimately associated with Cornwall, and that's Rosamunde Pilcher. So this is Coming Home by Rosamunde Pilcher. I've previously read two of her books, Winter Solstice and The Shell Seekers, and I really loved both of those. Her books do tend to be quite long, but I never find that they're too long, and She makes such, I don't know, nice characters and interesting storylines that are just really cozy, and you don't mind settling down with them for a while and seeing how they get on. Yeah, I can't wait to see how I like this one. I know it starts off with a girl in boarding school, and for some reason she has to go and live with more of an aristocratic family, and it's set just before the Second World War. So then the book is about how their life is changed by the Second World War. So that's it. I always really like a wartime story, so we'll see how I got on with this one. So would it really be possible to talk about books in Cornwall without mentioning Poldark? So like a lot of people nowadays that go to Cornwall, I suppose, it's one of the inspirations behind me and my mum's holiday, having watched the television series with Aidan Turner and Eleanor Tomlinson and loved it. It's the scenery, the storylines, the characters, they're all so great. I've read about half the series before, I think the first 4 books, but I never finished it, and seeing as it's been a while, I said I'd start from the start again. This is not the first book, this is Demelza, the second book. I thought I had a physical copy of Ross Poldark, the first book, somewhere, but I cannot find it, so I'll either read it on my e-reader or else I'll get a copy from the library. But I'm not sure how many I'll actually get through on my holidays, but I said I'd bring Ross Poldark and Demelza anyways. So for anyone that doesn't know, the Poldark series is about this man called Ross Poldark that comes home from the American War of Independence and finds out that his sweetheart Elizabeth has become engaged to his cousin in his absence, as they all believed that he was dead. And it's really how his life progresses when he comes home. He owns a mine, so there's a lot about copper mining in there. There are so many great characters, both people of his own class. Dr. Ennis is a particular favourite of mine, and also the miners that work for him and what they get up to. So from what I remember, the books were really good. I watched the television series much more recently than reading the books, and from what I remember, they are pretty close. So the television series is quite a faithful adaptation, so I'll be interested to see if that's how I remember. So I'll let you know whether I enjoyed the books as much this time round, but I do really recommend the television series as well if you haven't seen it. It's a great watch. So the next book is the last book in a series, or the last book that has been released so far in the series. It's the Charles Hayden series, and this book is Until the Sea Shall Give Up Her Dead by Sean Thomas Russell. I've read a good few of these series in the last year or two. Patrick O'Brien, the Aubrey Maturin series, the Hornblower series, and I've tried a few books from the others as well, but I think this is one of my favourites so far. Not quite as good as Patrick O'Brien maybe, but I find them really accessible compared to some of the series. The characters are great. I really like the hero, Charles Hayden. He is half French, his mother was French, but he serves in the Royal Navy, even though he's quite conflicted about that sometimes, so he's quite an interesting character. And I really like all the side characters as well. And the plots are so engrossing. None of them have really reached the same level of Under Enemy Colours. That was such a good book, I couldn't put it down. It's quite long, but when I thought back about how much had happened during the book, it was amazing. So I really recommend these books if you want to try this kind of nautical fiction. The time period is really interesting as well because it's set earlier in the Napoleonic Wars, whereas a lot of the other books I've read tend to be in the 1800s. This is in the 1790s, so that was great. And finally, just as I'll be coming home, Katie from Books and Things is hosting a read-along of The Watchmaker of Filigree Street by Natasha Polly. So I mentioned earlier that Persuasion is no longer my favourite book of all time. I'm sorry, Jane Austen. My favourite book is now The Kingdoms by Natasha Polly. Just out of shot up there, but I read that book before Christmas and it was so good, and I haven't read any of her other books. So I can't wait to get to this one. I think the main challenge is going to be actually waiting until the read-along date before I start it, but I will try. I'll link Katie's announcement video down below if you're interested. She is able to describe the plot much more eloquently than I can, but I believe it is about a main character who comes home one day and he finds out that a generous burglar, and that's how it's described in the blurb, it's so good, has broken into his flat and left a golden pocket watch on his pillow. and that somehow saves his life. If it's even half as good as The Kingdoms, it'll be well worth a read, and I can't wait to get into this. It'll be lovely for coming home. So that's it for today. It is quite an ambitious TBR, and I might be doing most of the driving, so we'll see how much I get read. I probably will pick up some books over there as well. It should be a very strange holiday if I didn't. I do like to pick some up as a souvenir, and I generally write where I got them on the inside cover just to have. I might even bring a few books extra just in case I'm in the mood for reading something else. But we'll see how closely my February wrap up matches up with this TBR. If anybody has any other suggestions on Cornwall related books, please leave them below, or indeed any places that you'd recommend me to visit in southwest Cornwall especially. So thanks everyone, and I'll see you again next Thursday.